Today we're going to work on key features of quadratics. So this is similar to what we did yesterday. Calculator will probably come in handy. So pull out your calculator. This worksheet says the total profit of a lemonade stand by month is given by the function negative 500x squared plus 2500x minus 2000. Oop, hang on a second. Okay, now we're up and running again. So, how do we figure out what the y values or the f of x values are going to be for this function? How do I find out what the profit is for a lemonade stand when x equals 0? If I know what the equation is. So I can put 0 in for x. So I can put 0 in there and in there. So negative 500 times 0 is 0, plus 2500 times 0, minus 2000. So the first y value would be negative 2000. How do I figure out when x equals 1? Plug 1 in. Now, I'm super lazy. I'm just lazy. We could plug in 1, or we could let the calculator do the work for us. Okay? Does everybody understand the f of x notation? F of x just means a function written in x. So what we're calculating is f of 0, which means we take the equation and we put a 0 everywhere the x used to be. So the next one would be f of 1. To figure this out, I prefer using a calculator, which is not on the right screen. So go into y equals and plug in that function. Is it plus 2500? Plus 2500 x. Oh, I missed one, but. Do you know how to make it so you don't overtype something? Yeah, if I were to push plus right now, it would replace the 2 with the plus, which I don't want to do. I want to insert the plus and bump everything off to the side. So above the delete button, there's an INS. Second, insert, and then I can put plus, and it kicks it over. And I push graph. Well, that's not very useful. We'll get to changing the window in just a second. What I want to look at is the table of values. So above the graph button, it says table. If you push second, table, here are all the numbers you want. Everything you need is right there. So 0, negative 2000, 1, 0, 2, 1000, 3, 1004, 0, and so on. So go ahead and fill out that chart. So 0, 2, it was 1000. Is that right? And then 1000 again, and then 0, and negative 2000. What were the last two numbers? Negative 5000 and negative 9000. Okay? So we can graph this, but we could graph it using points. I also want to make sure you understand how to change your window so that you can see the whole graph. So go to, let me minimize this or bring this down. Um, okay. So if you push window, and right now on my graph, I can see the roots, but I can't see much of anything else. So if I go into window, what would I change my X window to be able to see what I want to see? How far to the left and right should this graph be? And I would just match the graph that I gave you. What's the window of the graph on your paper? From -2 to 7. So y or x minimum -2, x maximum 7. What should I count by on the x-axis? 1. All right. And for the y values, what's the y minimum? -2,000. Oops. And the y maximum? It looks like it goes a little bit higher than 1,200. 1,600? That would work. Oh, make sure you put negative on your 2,000. Because I didn't. 1,600. And what should we count by? 200? Does everybody understand the scale? What it means when I say what should we count by? Okay. Now if I push graph, my x-axis is in single units and my y-axis is in units of 200. And really the only thing I don't know is the maximum. Do I know what the roots are? How do I know what the roots are? It certainly looks like 1 and, what was it, 3, 4? It looks like 1 and 4 are the roots, but how do I know that 1 and 4 are in fact the roots? How do I know that 1 is not just really close, but it is the root? Well, we could test it. So I could push trace and then hit 1, enter, but I already knew that. Where did I get the answer before? It was in the table. If you go into table, both 1 and 4 showed up as 0. So we knew from the table that those were the roots. So the table is another way you can find the roots, as long as the roots are whole numbers. Okay. So we go back to graph. There are a couple ways to find the maximum. Do we know where on the x-axis the maximum occurs? On the x-axis, what x-axis creates the highest point? And how do you know it's exactly 2.5? How do we know it's not close to 2.5, but it's exactly 2.5? It's the average of the two roots. Now you could do it with 2 and 3. They happen to be the same number, so you could average those. But the roots, one of the roots is 1 and one of the roots is 4. The maximum or the minimum is always exactly in the middle of those two roots, of any two roots. So if you average 1 and 4, 1 plus 4 is 5. Divide that by 2 and you get 2.5. So one way to find the maximum is just push trace and type in 2.5. We know where it is. So if I type in 2.5, I get 1125. What's the other way to find the maximum? Second calc maximum. If you don't know where it occurs, you can do second calc and then go to number 4 and then do left bound, right bound guess. So 1, 4, and 2. Now mine says 2.499999. What does that really mean? It means 2.5. Because my guess was a little bit off, the calculator kind of freaked out a little bit. The closer your guess is to the actual number, the more accurate your answer will be. Okay. We now know everything we need to know for the rest of these questions. If we go down, how much did it cost to start the business? So if I, oh, we need to draw the graph. So so that was 1 and 4, and we know this is 2.5 comma 1125. So how much did it cost to start the business? $2,000. That is one expensive lemonade stand. Okay. When did the business break even? What does it mean to break even? To get your money back. When did the lemonade people get their money back? After 1 month. So how much money was made in that first month? $2,000. So this point right here represents the time at which all of the money spent to start the business was made back. Have they reached a profit yet? No. Okay. Is there any other time when the business breaks even? At month 4. Right? Now, that's not such a good thing, right? So, the lemonade stand was profitable and then stopped being profitable, and apparently they kept it open, and at month 4 they had lost everything they'd made, but they were still even. They weren't, they hadn't spent more than they've made yet. Okay? So the next question, when is the business profitable? And that's an interval, right? How do we represent profitability as an interval? I'll do the hard part. X equals, what is the interval? Is it bracket or is it parenthesis? At the very start, or at the very end of month 1, at 1, has the lemonade stand made any money yet? No. It's after 1 that it starts to make money. So at 1, it hasn't made any money yet. It's broken even. So this should be parenthesis 1, comma, 4, bracket or parenthesis? Another parenthesis. 1 and 4 are not positive. So yesterday we talked about a graph being positive. That's all this means. For this lemonade stand to be profitable, the points have to be above the x-axis. Okay, next question. When is the business not profitable? Okay, now we got to be a little bit careful. That first piece where we spent our money and we ended up waiting a month before we made that back, what would that interval be? How would you do that first interval? Once again, I'll do the hard part. X equals. There are obviously 2 pieces of non-profitability, right? So how would you describe the x's of that first piece? Would we go negative infinity like we did yesterday? Why not? There was no lemonade stand a month before. Negative 1 doesn't exist. So what is the smallest x value for that first piece? 0. Now the question is, do we use a bracket or a parenthesis? Is the graph below the x-axis at x equals 0? Yes. Where is 0 comma what? So 0 comma negative 2,000 is a point on the graph, and that point is below the x-axis. So 0 should get a bracket. Does anybody not understand why? 2 things have to happen to be a bracket. First, the point has to be there. Is 0 one of the points on the graph? Yes, 0, negative 2,000 is in fact the very first point on the graph. And is that point below the x-axis? Yes. So the graph is negative at that point. Okay? For that same piece, what is the largest x value? 1. Now, does 1 represent a point that is below the x-axis? No. It's on the x-axis. So that would be a parenthesis. Right, 0 is profitability means above or below the x-axis. It's negative in this case. So is this point below the x-axis? Yes. So that one gets a bracket. Is this point below the x-axis? No. So it gets a parenthesis. Oh, I see. Oh, you're being tricky. I'll give that to you, John. Way to go. That's why we brought you along. John got me. It didn't ask for negative. It asked for not positive. Way to go, John. I'm with you. Wonder what my answer sheet says. Okay. Now let's union that with, what's the other piece? So it's going to be from 4 to infinity. Wait, it's going down. Shouldn't it be negative infinity? It's the x-axis that we're looking at. So 4 to infinity, and once again, John got me. Is 4 not a point that is not profitable? Yes. So that would be a bracket, and infinity always gets a parenthesis. Okay. So next question. When is the stand making money? What does it mean to be making money? That's profitable. Having more than you spent is profit. But when is the lemonade stand making money? Nope, that's profitable. John? When the graph is going up. When the amount they are bringing in is more than the amount they're spending at any particular moment. So that translates into the graph going up, increasing. So how many portions of increasing does this graph have? Just one. From here to there. Now obviously the lemonade stand is going to have to be spending money all the time. The goal for a business is, while you're spending money, you want to be bringing in more than you're spending. And obviously that doesn't happen this entire time. But for that first little bit, the amount being brought in is more than the amount being spent. Now we started $2,000 in the hole, and we have to overcome that to be profitable. But making money simply means the graph is going up. Okay? So what is the interval for increasing? And yesterday we talked about the car driving up the hill. What points in time is that car aimed up the hill? From 0 until, when does it stop going up? At 2.5. How do we know it's 2.5? That's the maximum right here. Now this is a little bit hard. At x equals 0, is the car faced up the hill? Yes, it is. If you're parked at x equals 0, you're $2,000 in the hole, but you're looking up the hill. So that would get a bracket. At 2.5, is the car pointed up the hill? No, it's flat. So that would be a parenthesis, because the graph is not increasing at 2.5. Is it decreasing at 2.5? No, it's transitioning from increasing to decreasing, which we call a maximum. Okay? When is the stand losing money? when the graph is going down, so right there, what's the interval? From 2.5 until infinity. Does 2.5 get a parenthesis or a bracket? Parenthesis, and infinity always gets a parenthesis. Okay. One thing I think is really important when you're studying graphs and real stories is, can you make sense of this? So the next question asks, how can you explain the shape of the profit curve? Why might a lemonade stand profit curve look like this? Austin? Definitely not going to sell much lemonade in the winter, at least not in Utah, right? That's one reason. Can you think of another reason? Why might a lemonade stand do really well for a while and then not do well after 3 or 4 months? And why might it cost more to keep it open? Maybe lemonade goes out of season, or our other Jesse said maybe you only bought lemonade once and the lemons went bad. There are a lot of reasons. The most obvious is probably a seasonal change, but I don't care what, I mean, maybe aliens invaded the planet, you know, right here, and people stopped buying lemonade and aliens don't like it and you kept the stand open. You know, there are lots of explanations. I don't care what your explanation is, so you need to pick one. Okay, describe what will happen if the business stays open forever. What's going to happen if we stay open forever according to this model? You're going to keep losing money forever. Okay, so if the stand was open for 5 months, so we had the stand open for 5 months, what would the domain be? Which x values exist if the stand is only open for 5 months? From 0 to 5. 0 is when we started, and we cut it off at 5. So it would be, the domain would be x equals 0 to 5. Would those be parentheses or brackets? Is the stand open at 0? Is it open at 5? Yes, so they're both brackets. Okay. And then the range, in that same time frame, what are all possible y values? 2.5 is an x value. Negative 2,000 would be the lowest y, and the highest y would be 1125. So the range is y equals negative 2,000. That's the lowest y value. And right from here to here is the range. So from negative 2,000 up to 1125. Is negative 2,000 part of the range? Yes, there is a point that is a negative 2,000. What about 1125? Is it also part of the range? Yes, so it gets a bracket. Okay, these are just numbers. 0, 5, those are just mathematical numbers, and same with negative 2,000, 1125. Let's interpret all of that information in words. What does all of this mean in practical terms? What do 0, 5 mean? What does negative 2,000, 1125 mean in the story? When I say from 0 to 5, what am I talking about? So the stand is open from 0 months up until 5 months. What does the range mean? Negative 2,000 what? Dollars. So the stand was at most $2,000 in debt, and at most $1,125 in the black. All right. Okay, we're done with that one.